It's time for another edition of PM Express. My name is Martha Krensolakwa. This evening we are talking money. But what are we talking about? Our city and how far it's gone and how far it's suffering, and then what we can do to perhaps salvage it if there's any hope at all. I will be talking to some experts who know better than I do. All I know is that in 2013, we started off with some 1 cedi 80 pesos to $1. And right now, we've hit beyond 4 cities. It's cause for concern. And so we're talking about how we can make it work for us, because that's all we have anyway, our city, against the other trading currencies in Ghana. Welcome to the studios of Joy News.
Thank you.
Okay, so I have Sydney Kesley-Hayford here, who is a financial analyst to my left. And then I have Samuel Kofi-Ampa, who is the head of research at Group Indum. Welcome.
Yeah, thank you.
What are we not getting right with our city?
Well, thank you very much for having me here. You know, the city, if you look back to the history of the Ghanaian currency, since 1983, when we changed from the fixed income rates regime to the floating exchange rates, the city had not been performing well. If you look at even from 2008, when we did the redenomination at 0.96 to $1, from that time till now, I mean, we've not seen the value of our currency basically gaining, either appreciating or even having some level of stability. To date, the city had depreciated about 99.9%.
Wow.
You know,
we are getting to Zimbabwe.
So that's how bad the currency. But you know, if you go back to look at why we're having these high level rates of depreciation, you know, we've been talking a lot more about demand and supply. Today, I want to leave the demand and supply thing behind and look at really what has been happening. Because if you look at what you just said, that in 2013 we had 1.4. And now we are 4.5. And trust me, we are estimating some other banks have already given a forward rate of the currency ending the year about 5 cedi to the dollar, 5 cedis to the dollar, yes. You know, but you know, key is what happened in 2012, where we had the double fiscal deficit, what we call the twin deficits. Okay. You know, that started the real problem for the Ghanaian economy, because in 2011, where we had the unprecedented growth figures of about 14%, I mean, we were tagged as an economy, the best growing economy yes, I mean, we got excited about that. Right after that, the preceding year, we recorded such very unprecedented, again, there were the terms that were used, twin deficit, fiscal deficit. And, you know, clearly, if the variables that fight a currency, you have the fiscal deficit as one of the variable. We have inflation as one of the variable. We have the the interest rates as one. We have debt, you know, the high debt or debt portfolio to GDP, higher debt to GDP portfolios as one. We have high unemployment rate as one. I mean, clearly there are several indicators that point to, I mean, that if these things, you have a negative performance of these indicators, it shows, it will definitely tell on your currency. And fiscal deficit was clearly one of the key things that we had an unprecedented. So from that time till now, I guess the city had not seen some significant stability from that time till now. And it doesn't even show that all the clear variables I've talked about, there is hope.
No.
You know, so if we still continue to see these things, it portends that the city clearly has no future. And it's going to be difficult. I mean, as I sit here, I don't know about Sydney. I mean, I can't see, or I can't stick a finger to say that the city perhaps could gain some value in the next few. I mean, I could give you one typical reason. I mean, a lot was said about the IMF coming into Ghana. And trust me, the IMF, yes, have come into Ghana because we talked about policy credibility and a whole lot of, things that we talked about. And the $114 million that we had, that we all were told that is going to come up to shore up the value of the currency, it lasted for just 3 weeks. And I have the figures here. I mean, I could show you.
We'll go into details of how it lasted for 3 weeks. But Mr. Kingsley Hayford, you've not been a happy man.
No, I have been
We've been using the Cedi, and this is our Cedi. What are your initial comments?
Well, I have been very upset about so many things for so long. One of the primary things is what we are doing here today. That unfortunately for us, we have to explain all of this in English. We don't have the vocabulary in the local languages to be able to explain to the people who should really understand what is going on in their local languages. Aji masmo kwekoma we ene gang. Nima trambe balance sheet sanike, profit and loss sanike, cash flow sanike. In the words ewa inti my only option me one day whatever kind of brofum. Na me kind of brofum so new be no
reach the people you want to reach.
So this is a fundamental problem that we face. So the conversation like this is left to those of us who are considered to be middle class, and I don't even know what that term means, to explain amongst ourselves and to decide amongst ourselves
so
whether or not.
It ends with us.
It ends with us, which is why we are not moving anything forward. Everything that we are saying now, if it translates well, should be able to energize the average Kenyan and get them also motivated to feel that they have to do something about what is going on. And because we can't, it stops between us, the executive, parliament, and the judiciary. And that's the unfortunate circumstances in which we find ourselves. But let's address the core problem. And I know that Sam likes to say that it is not a supply and demand issue, or he doesn't want to look at it as a supply and demand issue. Unfortunately, that's what it is. Irrespective of whatever is happening, the reason why one currency depreciates against the other currency is because there is too much of one against the other. So whatever it is that people are using the money for, they are demanding a certain amount of dollars. And by doing so, they are using Cedis, which is what they can attract, in order to be able to supply or to buy the dollars that they require to do their imports. Here's the thing. You go to any supermarket in this country today, 90% or 99% of the goods in the supermarket are all imported. The only things that are local you will find are things like cashew, fufu, egusi, Tom Brown these days. These days I've seen some ekwegbe, I've seen some other items. And then if you're lucky, you see some golden tree chocolate. Something which ideally, if we were doing correctly, there should be no foreign chocolates in this country at all. Everything should be locally produced, locally sourced. You can do your fruit and nuts if you want to, with a little bit of milk and sugar, and you should get a chocolate bar. But the origins, the raw material should be Ghana cocoa. And you see, that is the sad part of what we are doing, because it is by actually setting up a manufacturing base in cocoa that will actually give you the amount of strength that you need for your currency to be strong against other currencies.
We're not doing that.
No, we don't have a manufacturing base, and we don't have a productivity base. We do have some, but when we say we don't have it, we mean that it is not significant enough for it to be competitive. And even where we have manufacturing, we are importing 60 to 70% of the raw material in order for us to add labor and water and electricity. So it goes against us. So the currency issue is not, you see, you can't go to the market and just say, okay, today I command my Cedi to be 2 Cedis to $1. And then it suddenly happens. It doesn't work that way. Okay? So the currency issue is a symptom of other causes. If you want to understand it, you need to go and examine the causes why we are doing this. And the simple reason is we import more than we export.
But my main concern is, you're telling me this because you're a financial analyst, so you understand. You're head of research. You're also into finances. You understand this. Those who have been mandated to work on this, don't they understand the way you do?
They do. I mean,
then what's holding them back from doing this?
you know, it's I really do think that it's either the political will sometimes, you know, do not deprives them of taking the right decisions, or perhaps the corruption that is engaged within governance system doesn't, you know, give them the opportunity to set up the proper rules, because clearly, if we live in a country where, you know, it's been alleged that politicians are engaged in the activities of importing goods that we are, you know, we could even, you know, be producing in the country.
Yes.
I mean, where Sydney talked about the fact that we are clearly an import-led economy, and therefore, if we want to really salvage the currency, we should be looking at perhaps adding value to what we have, the cocoa that we have, you know. But you see people, actors, people that are supposed to support the value of the currency, you know, they rather engage in businesses that rather, you know, go to the extent of destroying the currency. So it's a matter of deciding. It's a political thing, you know. If you go to a country like South Africa, sometimes we need to look outside our borders and go and mention dollar.
It's strange.
You don't hear anybody talk about dollar, okay? But this is a country where we have our own government policy on indexing import duties in dollars. And that's a government policy, okay? So if you have such a thing going on, you're talking about dollarization, okay? Like he's rightly said. I mean, things are being priced in dollars.
Yeah,
Today I ask myself, if you picked up a mortgage,
it will be in dollars.
which is in, I mean, mortgages are in
Already.
dollars. You can imagine how much you are paying today with this currency fluctuations. I mean, our currency losing huge value.
And those who
Okay.
are taking such mortgages are crying.
So,
because they have to pay off.
yes, that's it. But the people who are supposed to help us, that they understand, that have been given the political power to do these things, you ask me whether they understand. Yes, they do. Yes, they do. Because
Right.
they are accountable to the people. If you hear the Makola person today, I might want to say that when Cedi was talking about it, making it more, using language where people can understand.
Yes.
The people understand, because somebody started the year, let's say 2015, with a capital of about $100,000, right? And then today, when he started the year, the cedi was being exchanged at 3.1. Okay, today, he has to go bring
Mid-year.
this today.
Mid-year.
Mid-year.
We are there.
And he has to exchange the dollar for 4.4 or 4.3, right? What happens to the person's capital, seed capital of $100,000? The value had depreciated. So if he has to pick 100 phones to come and sell, today he can't pick this same amount of 100 phones. But the dollar is still the dollar. But our cedi had lost value. So the person can get, instead of 100, can get 80. That ordinary person's business is collapsing.
Let's talk about some of the policies that may have been put in place by the Bank of Ghana and to shore up the cedi, to make it work for us. How has it worked so far? What are the policies? How has it worked for us?
I like that because the policy. Sorry for this, but it's
Don't worry,
unfortunate.
it's okay. It's okay. It's okay. We're being real on this one.
When you start talking about policy, you see, there's a lot of policy incoherence
Okay.
in this country, and basically all I'm saying is, one policy goes in one direction, and another policy
And the
seems
other
to be pulling
counters it, and then it doesn't work.
and then
So
it
there is no
doesn't work.
policy at all.
So in the end, you don't even know which policy is guiding us and moving forward. The Bank of Ghana has put several policies in place, which, if you remember the debacle, the currency shifted, it started going down, and then it switched again after he had to make corrections, And I believe that was somewhere in June or July in 2013, or 2013?
No,
2014,
2014.
when it had to be corrected in order to make it work. So when we start discussing government policy, I think you're going into a realm that is a bit too difficult to unravel and to explain properly. Rather than looking at that, let me say something that Sam said, which you see, and there are times when I fundamentally disagree with orthodoxy. We're doing things the same way that we have known to be done a long time ago. I've always asked this question: what is wrong with having multiple currencies in an economy? What is wrong in having a Ghana Cedi, a US dollar, a pound sterling, because it exists, a euro, and everything else that people like to trade with? If I own a shop and somebody comes to me and says, oh, I'd like to buy this drum, okay? And I said, okay, my figure is 200 cedis. And then he wants to know, oh, but I don't have cedis, I only have Swiss francs. So how much is it in Swiss francs? And I have a conversion table, and I say, okay, it's so many Swiss francs. He pays me my Swiss francs, he gets his drum. What's wrong with that?
Nothing.
All you want to do is to have a rate at midnight of every day, all right, which should come from the central bank, that says these are the relativities in the exchange rates. And they are made available to everybody who is dealing in duplicate currencies. And you will have people coming in with Naira, people coming with Sefa, and all you want to be concerned with is that you're not getting counterfeit money. So all you need are counterfeit machines that detect counterfeit currency, and you are done. Now that way, you have people who will come in from China with yuan, they will come from Japan with yen, they will come from everywhere they can with their money in their pockets, and all they have to do is to declare the currency at the port of entry according to the rules of the country, and you're done. And even that, you don't even need to bother.
What would that do to our currency?
What it will do is that you don't have the pressure on the Cedi to buy dollars. People don't need to buy dollars. You see, the direction of trade in this economy has changed. Now we trade with the Asian countries a lot. There's more people going to China and India to buy things, Singapore, Malaysia, Turkey, everywhere else, than are going to the US and to, and to Europe.
Yes.
So you want to give people the opportunity to work freely. The problem we have in this country is this rigidity that we have in our economic management, where we think that everybody or anybody who is a private individual who has his own private business is a crook.
Really?
This is the mentality that government keeps, that anybody who is in private sector, who is trying to make things easier so they can get on with it, must be up to some mischief and must be trying to do something wrong. So that mentality fuels the kind of claustrophobic closedness which we have. End of the day, what is it that government wants? Government wants to tax people. That's what government wants to do. So all you are hoping for is that people will have enough activity in business that they will pay their taxes, and government will have enough money to be able to redirect the money in order to be able to get the infrastructure done. If you keep that in mind, then your whole concept has got to be to free the economy such that it will be easy for people to come and go and do business with you. And that's all it is.
Think otherwise?
Well, I really...
The multiple currencies.
No, I mean, I really will want to know
the multiple currencies.
case studies or examples of countries that do that.
Nobody has done it. This is a whole different board.
But we don't live in this system or this planet in isolation. I mean, you should have best examples. If you look at what is happening in Liberia, for example, the Liberian dollar is there, but the people prefer the American dollar. Okay. Now, yes. Now, the Liberians are fighting to get the American dollar out of the system so that the people will use the Liberian dollar, because the Liberian dollar has lost value. You understand me?
Let me just butt in on this one. Sam, tell me, where in this world are there best examples of Kwanlogo?
Only in Ghana.
Do you know any country where there's Kwanlogo we can go and learn to dance Kwanlogo?
It's not,
unfortunately,
like the Cedi.
It's a product, it's a service, it has its own uniqueness in its way.
Yes.
So there are some things that originate.
There
are certain things that originate from a country. Not everybody has to go and copy something from somewhere.
I understand Sydney's point, but I just want to agree with him on one fact that he made, that if Ghanaians today, I mean, when I was growing up, let me start from here. When I was growing up, most Ghanaians were trading with the European countries. I mean, if you see in those days cars that were imported into the country, they were the Opel brands. So it tells you that we were importing more from Germany and then Holland and most European countries. Now, then something happened. And then Ghanaians started importing cars from America. Now, we started losing value against the American dollar. Now, Ghanaian business people have now changed to the Asian countries. Now, they are doing more business with the Chinese. We were in this country when the central bank came out to state that because of the pressure on the cedi, because of the trade, I mean, the way Ghanaian traders are now shifting to China, they want to trade in the Chinese rand.
Chinese yuan.
Yuan, sorry.
The renminbi.
RMB, yeah. So we were all excited. I'm sure you were excited as well.
No, Sam, come. You've forgotten the history.
Okay.
When Parkwesi Emisa Arthur was vice president, there was the governor of the bank. There was the governor of the Bank of Ghana. I wrote an article specifically on this issue that the direction of trade had changed.
That's right.
And the Bank of Ghana should start keeping yuan reserves in order to make it available over the counter so people could go and buy currency.
That's right. But what has happened?
And they told me and they told me it was incorrect theory and it wouldn't work. A year later they come and announce that that's what they're going to do.
And then what has happened? Has it happened?
It hasn't happened.
It hasn't
because they
happened.
haven't implemented it.
You know, if we sit here and we talk about short-term solutions, I'm tired about talking about short-term solutions. Okay.
So we'll take our first break and then we'll come back and talk more about the cedi. We're back on PM Express, and I have Sydney Kesley Hayford and Samuel Kofi-Ampa in the studio, and we're talking the cedi, its depreciation, and what we can do if there is a willpower at all to save our cedi from further collapse, if there's anything like that. Welcome back. You were you were very, very emotional before we went for
Well, I guess, I mean, you know, you have to be emotional. Because where you
but the emotions don't take us further than we go anytime.
You see, the thing is that we need to demand. We need to, I mean, this gentleman here has written a lot about the currency. He just talked about it before we went on a break. I have written. Sometimes when people call me to analyze or talk about the cedi, I tend to, you know, say no to them because I think that we've talked enough. We talked enough. This is a country where, before we went on a break, we're talking about the fact that we're looking at short-term solutions to the problem of the currency. And we talked about the fact that a lot more traders in this country have now turned their attention to trade with the Chinese counterparts. Now they all buy their goods. If you go into the market, everything that we have here is made in China. Okay? So please, so what stops us from now having trading, you know, partners with the Chinese, you know, counterpart? What we turn to do rather is to sign an agreement with them and exchange it with our exportable commodities, where the revenues don't come here. Okay? It stays there. It stays there. So where do we get the exchange, the reserves? How do we show up our reserves to be able to, you know, do some flotation when the demand is high?
It's government's borrowing to shore up the cedi, one of the short-term or long-term measures. You're talking about short-term measures, but I want us to talk about other measures as well.
Government's appetite for borrowing is creating what we as we call it, crowding out the private sector. Somebody made an interesting analogy today that government is like a big fat pig. All right, and it's eating everything that you put in the hopper, so nobody else gets an opportunity to eat anything. So the minute we throw
that's very mean.
It's mean.
Well, that's a reality.
But it's a good allegory. It works. It's interesting when you look at it. You can imagine a big fat pig just eating everything in the tray, so nobody else has access to it.
Very selfish,
and that's what's happening. And precisely so, his theory was that, well, if you want everybody else to have a piece of the food or some of the food, then you have to kill the pig. All right. So
Now getting leaner.
So we kill who?
So you kill the pig. If you kill the pig,
We've not said anything about who the pig is or what the pig is.
And the fact of the matter is that the short-term borrowing issue is a big problem.
Yeah.
It's a huge problem because when you look at it, government just borrowed about a year ago. Government went to the market and borrowed $1.7 million for cocoa purchases.
Okay.
They also then went and floated a sovereign bond for $1 billion.
Yeah.
All right? Okay, now we went to the IMF and we took $918 million. All, as we said, to try and get policy credibility. Now, you take the $1.7 billion and that $1.7 billion is supposed to be guaranteed on the back of cocoa production. So you have gone and pledged that you will be able to pay back the 1.7 billion because you have enough cocoa coming in that will take care of it when you sell.
Okay.
Now what has happened? The cocoa is short by nearly 22% in production quantities. From where we thought we would do 860,000 metric tons of cocoa, we're doing 670,000 metric tons. And that's the latest that has come up. Now how are you going to pay back that money? Because now you can't supply the cocoa that you said you were going to use. So now you have to go and find that extra money from somewhere. And where is that money? Where has it gone? The money is supposed to be sitting with Cocoa Board. All right? But Cocoa Board, I will bet you anytime that money has gone to go and show up other issues in government, particularly to pay the short-term debt that you're asking about. So if we have used that money to pay the short-term debt and we have used it to actually prop up the Cedi, because between July last year into December, and I remember when this issue came up, the Deputy Minister of Finance, then Muna Quarty, and a few people were on a campaign trail telling everybody that the Cedi was appreciating. My comment at the time was, hold on. In fact, in this very studio, I remember saying, hold on, it's not, you need to give yourself some time. Don't just jump to the conclusion simply because you've gone and borrowed money, that 3 weeks, 4 weeks down the line, your Cedi is now stabilized and is gaining ground.
That, I remember.
Plenty fanfare. They were all over the place. Now look at us. After December, all that we have done is the Cedi has been depreciated. To the point now where we have lost about 25–26% of value this year alone. All right? And the simple reason is because we are borrowing way too much. Okay? Everybody's been saying Ghana is going to go HIPIC. Now, the Economic Intelligence Unit has published a report last week talking about all the failed macroeconomic indicators that we have. And the mistake we make all the time is everybody talks about the macroeconomic indicators in government like as if you can go and pluck it from somewhere and just write it and then it works. You can't go and say, oh, this week, in this quarter, we are pegging inflation at 10% and then it works. Inflation is another symptom, all right? There are several things that cause inflation to go up or come down. So you have to attack the symptoms of the issue. And when you get down to it, anybody who is seriously looking at it will tell you the problem Ghana has is the structure of our economy.
That's simple. Very simple.
It has nothing to do with what is going on currently. The reason why the Cedi is performing so badly is because, on one side, you don't have enough exports to match the imports that you're bringing in. So you have to keep fueling that. That's number one. Number two, you don't have enough revenue to meet your expenditures. We are budget deficiting, and we are actually running at a deficit of close to 8.5 to 9% of GDP if you want to understand it that way. And I always say, forget about those indicators. This GDP thing there, it doesn't make any difference. Your problem is cash. How much cash are you getting from all the revenues, all the income that you're generating? From your taxes and levies, from your minerals and royalties, from your oil money, from your cocoa money, everything else. How much cash are you bringing in? And how much cash are you spending? And when you work that out, that is your true understanding of where your deficits are. And if you do cash to cash, purely cash to cash, and you look at it, you find that the deficit is even bigger. And to compound the whole problem, the way we account in this country is a poor mishmash of so many things. All right? When you are accounting, you either do cash accounting, so you are clear, or else you do partial, what we call accrual accounting, which is you recognize some of your liabilities but not others because they are not impacting on your cash in the short term, or else you do full accrual accounting, which means that you estimate.
You're confusing
I'm coming
your
to
viewers
explain.
now.
I'm coming to. If you don't do cash,
Okay.
and you do partial means that there are some expenses that you're not paying for in cash, but you know you have to pay soon, immediately enough, within 12 months.
Okay.
So you must bring it into your books of accounts. The last part, which is full accrual, is because you have to look at everything that you are spending money on, or you're making obligations to pay. Where you have invoiced somebody has invoiced you, and where you're actually expecting that you have to pay some money, you must account for it as something that you owe in the near future, and you must therefore bring it into your books.
So which one are we doing?
We are doing a mishmash of all of it.
Wow.
Some parts of our accounting is in cash, some of it is in partial accrual, and then to count it all, our assets, the nation's assets, are not depreciated. So you don't know what the replacement of the asset policy is going to be. Depreciation means that every time, the clothes that you're wearing, if you wash it frequently enough, it will fade.
Yes.
If you hang it in the sun, it will fade. So what you do is you make plans that, oh, very soon, it will fade. If it fades, I need to replace it.
Yeah.
So you make sure you have enough money to replace it when the time comes. You might not consciously go and put money and say, this is for this dress A, and dress B, and dress C. But you know that generally you need to have enough money so you can replace your wardrobe as you go forward. Sometimes your physical body will change. It'll get slimmer or it'll get fatter. You need to have new clothes to be able to replace it. It's the same thing with the government. Sometimes your economy will expand. Sometimes it will shrink. But when it expands, you must make sure you have adequate resources to be able to cater for the expansion. People's appetites change. People's appetites change. And when that appetite changes, you want to make sure that you have it. Some make the example of we importing cars from Germany first of all, then we brought it to America. Now we are trading in China. But do you see any Chinese cars here?
No, not
We don't buy
yet.
cars from China. We haven't decided to do that yet. You have Hyundai here, you have some Toyota here, etc., etc. But they have been here for ages already now. But we are not seeing Chinese cars coming in. Used to be a time though when we used to have Russian cars.
The ladder.
Yeah. We don't talk about them. That car will never break down. You know, it will go forever.
The Niva and the ladders. Yeah.
Your short-term constraints are a problem, and they are causing the Cedi depreciation. Part of the answer is in the short-term borrowing, because government is borrowing so much that people are beginning to get panicky. All right? Everybody who is investing dollars in this country or have some investments in this country is panicking because government is not seen to be a disciplined government that can actually manage.
Always overspending and borrowing.
Always. So anybody having money now is putting his money into dollars, hedging, and some people are taking their money out or changing as much CDs as they can into dollars and finding a way to take it out.
Okay.
And by doing so, there's a lot of pressure to put dollars into the system. By the end of this year, the CD will hit 5 to 1.
I was actually coming to your projections. You were talking initially about some banks making projections of how the CD will fare at the end of the year, by the end of the year. What, do you have projections
Of
yourself?
course, like I agree with what Sydney just talked about because, look, clearly, like he said, the structure of the economy, I mean, is the reasons why we're going through all these challenges. And for me, I do not see any heaven. Now, I clearly cannot pinpoint because government, if you look at, for example, the first quarter of 2015, government projected to borrow about 12.5 billion from the domestic market.
Domestic market.
And what did government do? Government borrowed over 18 billion from the domestic market. Now, what it means is that now you're crowding out the private sector, like you rightly said, okay? And then this is the time that we've gone to the IMF to be fiscally or financially prudent in our expenditure patterns to ensure that we keep our debt, under proper management. But if we start off the year by overshooting our borrowing targets,
then there's no hope for the future.
and clearly, I mean, so it tells you that clearly we set a target of 25 billion for the first half of 2015 to borrow from the domestic market. Just the first quarter, we are just close to the target for the half year.
You hold it for me. I'll come back. We have been joined on the phone by Dr. Daniel Cedi, who is a financial analyst, to make some contributions to our topic today. Hello, Doc.
Hello.
Welcome to PM Express.
Thank you.
What are your initial thoughts about the cedi and its depreciation?
Well, we need to acknowledge that the cedi is a very weak currency.
A very weak currency indeed.
Basically because, I will just summarize it, that we are not efficient in the things we do.
Okay.
It's actually the exchange we are saying is actually a measure of our level of efficiency.
Okay. So we are not very efficient.
We are not.
At all.
We are not.
What is contributing to this? My guests in the studio have been talking about us not being disciplined when it comes to budget, when it comes to all the indicators, in fact, unemployment, everything else is not working for us, and that is why the cedi is being like this. What do you think is the way out for us?
Well, the way out is like they are saying, we need to be very disciplined. Because there are two things you need to be successful in life.
Okay.
Be disciplined and being creative. Because whatever we produce, we produce it at a high cost that even if we export, we can't be competitive.
Okay.
And so we can't sustain it. If you look at our major export, which is cocoa, we've lost focus somewhere along the line. So our production levels are not pushing as they should be. So if we do not export, and export things at competitive prices, there's no way our currency is going to be strong. But unfortunately, we follow the line of thinking that if you go and borrow money, you can stabilize it for 2 or 3 months, and you think you're doing well. It's a way of deceiving ourselves. And we need to wake up. We need to wake up and smell the coffee.
Okay. We need to wake up and smell the coffee. Now, let's talk about how we are trading with our major currencies in the country. Do you have concerns about trading with the dollar? For Ghanaians, most people go in for the dollar, basically. But like my guest in the studio said, we trade more with Asian countries than with the U.S. And yet all we ever ask for is dollar.
Yeah, we can talk about Asian currency, but again, the truth of the matter is that if you are even trading with China, remember, it's not just you trading with China. Whatever you're going to export to China, somebody from another part of the world will export the same commodity. And again, it comes to you ultimately being competitive. So if we don't learn to do things properly, we'll certainly have problems. Let me take you along the line of petrol as a generic word.
Okay.
I mean, our way of solving traffic problems as a people is to buy more cars. So it tells you our mindset and the way we think. Now, when we go to IMF, they tell us there's nothing you can do about petrol. But they are not telling us that, look, take off the small cars off the road and use mass transit system, which will make you a lot more efficient. Nobody is not telling us to do the efficient thing. So I think basically we've never addressed our minds to efficiency. We have been people who live on the toils of other people. We want somebody to feed us, and we never want to take responsibility for our own actions.
Okay, so let's talk about production. We've been talking about how we've become an import-led economy. We've done this for a while. It's not helping us. We've been talking about some policies, which Sydney Kisleifo doesn't want to talk about because one policy comes in, another counters it, and there's no policy at all. So what is the problem? Are those in authority, those who are mandated to make sure these things work, don't know what you are telling me, or they just lack the political will, like Samiampa said, to make it work?
You're moving into the next level where we have become people who have never been honest with ourselves. We need to be honest with ourselves. Nobody is waiting for us to wake up before they move on with their lives. We need to be productive. We need to be competitive. You can't be an import-dependent country and expect to survive and expect your currency to be strong. It will never happen. If we don't produce to export, our currency would always be weak. Borrowing is not a solution to our problem. The problem is that we need to tell ourselves, look, let's start doing things very well. Let's stop those things that we do not need. Let's find real solutions to our problems. Let's have responsible leadership. I think over the years we have challenges with leadership. I'm not talking about only political leadership all over. We've not seen real leaders among us.
Okay, so if you have a projection, what would you say the cedi will end the year with against the dollar? 5, 6, or maybe 3 cedis?
Maybe 10.
No, I will not even talk about the end of the year. I mean, the recent policies, which don't ask me what the recent policies are, whatever decisions we've made quite recently, which is triggering this thing, if we don't look at it again, end of July, certainly we will hit 5 and beyond.
Wow. Thank you very much, Dr. Daniel Sedo. By end of July, we may hit 5.
Wow, that's huge.
That's very harsh. Very
Well,
harsh.
no, seriously. I mean, hey, it can happen.
July.
It can happen. You remember that government came to say that they were going to issue a bond in July?
Yeah. I hear yes. Well, they need IMF permission.
Yes, and I don't think they're going to get it.
I wonder.
Well, I don't think so. So all throughout the year, projections were being made on the fact that we're going to have the Eurobond issuance done, where if you are fortunate, we'll be successful with it. We're going to have the cocoa syndicated loan, this year as well, where perhaps if you are successful, we can raise the $1.7 billion dollars that we got for last year. At least we've heard announcements being made by donor partners that the EU are saying they are going to now, be softening their stance on us and give us some money. Some other partners, donor partners, have also, shown indication of support for the Ghanaian economy. So some of the projections that were being made were based on the fact that all these predictions might come to pass. However, looking at the first quarter performance after the review by the IMF, and basically we're going to the second half of the year, we're ending the first half of the year. I mean, we clearly do not see that most all the projections that we made, we're going to meet targets. So it clearly puts us in that.
So we're likely to hit 5
So I mean, we're looking at it from various angles.
It's scary.
Yeah, but if we should hit 5 cedis, which is possible, it's I don't know, but
I need to take a break so I can think about what it means to hit 5 cedis to $1 by the end of July.
Forward forecast.
Thanks for staying with us on PM Express. My guests in the studio are Samiyampa and Kesley Hayford, Sydney Kesley Hayford.
Yes, ma.
You're still here. The cedi, is there any artificial way that we get to make people believe that the cedi is doing so well, and then we have all these fanfares about it? Is there any artificial thing we've been doing?
Can I
want to know.
Can I ask a very simple question, which is, I hope others and you will answer? What is wrong with the cedi depreciating?
Everything's wrong
Like
with
what? How is it going to affect you? Don't you eat kenke, rice, plantain, gari?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
is it not cedis?
It's in
Isn't the
cedis.
majority of your everyday life
In cedis.
feeding your children and your family, isn't it in cedis?
It's in cedis.
Unless you want to buy your children cornflakes and sausages and bacon, then you have a problem.
But
Really?
Don't we import petroleum products? Look at what is happening.
Yes.
Look at what is
It
happening to the
comes
price
back
of
to
petrol.
hurt me. Even if I don't want to
how
do
much-
it, they bring it in.
How much of your home budget
A
is
whole
tied
lot.
into
A whole lot.
that? So if it is a lot and it is costing you too much, then cut down your travel.
No, I'm not traveling. My everyday work going out, coming back. It's just my everyday routine. I'm not traveling.
So
let me tell you,
anywhere.
people have benchmarked their pricing to dollars. If you go buy, I mean, just walk on the street and just say you're going to buy something made in Ghana, they will tell you, they've increased the price and tell you that now and today, Cedi no dollar no or cost, right?
Yes,
They'll tell you that.
True. I hear
Because
that all the time.
people are pricing.
but you know it's not
They
true.
may not price it in
Because
dollar, but they tell you
They are not
dollar.
pricing
You know
dollar.
it's
Then
not
you
true
don't-
because
don't-
there's no
don't-
dollar components in a ball of kinky.
Sydney, the gentleman will tell you the prices of petroleum have gone up.
Look,
he went
And it
to the
affects
farm gate
everything.
Listen,
to
listen,
bring it.
listen,
You know, I
listen.
understand your point.
Listen,
but the
we
reality,
have been psyched over the years into this political sensitization that the currency depreciating is a problem. In economic parlance, all right, in economic parlance, to all intents and purposes, when your currency depreciates, it makes imports more expensive.
Perfect.
And therefore your exports should be more lucrative.
but unfortunately in our situation, it's the reverse.
That's why it's the structure. The structure of our economy
That's
is
perfect.
wrong.
That's perfect.
Okay.
All right,
That's
and
perfect.
because of that, that is why when you have something happening like this, which is supposed to be a good thing in the short term before your currency really stabilizes, it's supposed to help you. Because what government should now be doing is saying to everybody, hey guys, the currency has gone down, it is cheaper, it is more expensive to import, let's get import substituted products and let's push the export drive.
Okay.
So everybody concentrate on what it is that you can take out
But
there
then again,
to get
it
more
takes you
currency.
back to what Mr. Ampa said earlier, that you have politicians involved in importing the things you want to cut out and then try and stabilize the economy, and so it becomes difficult.
That's a very, very
to do
cynical
that.
statement to make, and it goes beyond the remit of economic analysis. He cannot factor that into his whole analysis that politicians are involved in business and are distorting the economic reality. He could say persons are in there, but not politicians, because he has no empirical evidence to prove that. So I will take that with a pinch of salt. It doesn't mean that he's wrong. I just think that the labeling that politicians are in there cannot be proven.
Then why don't we have the willpower to make sure, if you know the problem, you should be able to tackle the problem? Why can't we tackle the problem?
Yeah, we can't tackle the problem because we don't understand properly.
Really?
Ghanaians are very, very bad, especially in our economic management. Very, very bad at sitting down and really looking and analyzing numbers, which is why people like him and me can sit back and have this conversation with you, because we are reading it and seeing it differently. The tea leaves are there. It's up to you to decipher exactly how the tea leaves tell the story. So we see the numbers and we're saying what you're telling us just doesn't make sense. All right? It doesn't make sense, and therefore we don't understand it. We have deregulated the petroleum sector, as we said today, and yet the prices have gone up. It shouldn't be. When you deregulate, especially when government was buying or pitching the price at the higher rate of about $114 per barrel, now we are down to something like about $60 per barrel. When you deregulated, it should automatically have come through. But there's something wrong with that whole idea of what they're calling deregulation, and there's something amiss in the way the rule and the regulations are being done. So we need to look at that and see what has gone wrong. So you can't come to me and tell me that, oh, we've deregulated, so everything should be fine. But look, we told you that if it weren't for us, if you deregulate, the private sector will rip you off, which is not true. There's something else amiss, which we are going to try and figure
Mr.
out.
Ampa, what are the solutions?
Well, I mean, I guess we've been talking about solutions for God knows how many times we've been on set, but I really want to see some pragmatic measures, you know, that will apply to fiscal and monetary policy. I mean, I would like to see, especially the monetary policy. So, I mean, Sydney had talked about fiscal policy and how, I mean, they could, you know, cut down expenditure and revenues and all that. But monetary policy is also very important to ensure that we really have some regulations within the sector. I mean, we'll see how we can monitor you know, the sector. I mean, if you look at what's happening within the forex pricing, and then allowing even, you know, third, or what do you call the black market people to also operate within the market. It's clearly one of the key reasons why we're having this type of problem. So I think the monetary policy or the central bank should be able to, regulate efficiently and monitor the system very, very well.
Then we can put
clearly.
our
I mean,
CD
we've had, and this is the true fact that we've had the central bank support government, budgets above the threshold. I mean, clearly they know the implications of such things. If you go 35% above the threshold of 5%, you know the implications where you flood the money, you flood the system, but they still become very liquid. Now you come back and mop up the excess liquidity that you have really created the problem. I mean, these things go a long way to affect us.
Okay. All right.
Sydney's
You want my solution?
I will come back.
Here's my solution. Here's my solution.
I'll come back for your solution.
You come back for my solution.
I'll come for your
Come back for my
solution.
solution.
So we take our last break. When we come back, Cedi will offer us his solution, and I hope those in authority will listen and apply it. Back on PM Express, and my name is Martha Krensalakwa. Mr. Sidney Kisley Hayford will give me his solution to our problem.
2 minutes. It won't take long. Stop borrowing.
Okay, all right.
All right? Let's stop borrowing the money. Okay? Because you cannot borrow your way out of debt.
Okay.
Yeah? All the time you're doing it, people are watching, and the next time you go to go and borrow, they will always ask you for more interest. So stop borrowing. Let's stop overspending.
Yeah.
All right? Let's make a very, very good decision that we are no longer going to spend the way we are doing. Let's stop taking donor money. The grant aid that we are getting and the multi-donor aid that we are getting is all destroying the way we think and the way we manage our economy.
Why?
Because it distorts you. You get free money, you spend it willy-nilly.
Okay.
All right?
It has not even helped us. I mean, if you look
It doesn't do anything for you. It distorts your market economies.
Okay.
All right? And then lastly, let's change the way we think generally, all right, of the economy. Let's change the whole way that we are thinking, that we are doing things.
All of us together.
Ghana, this is a government initiative. Ghana has to think about getting centers of excellence because we don't have that broad a range of product that we can do. So you need to use your head to make money. You need to use your mindset to generate money. Ghana can become the highest education establishment or the learning center in sub-Sahara West Africa, and people will come and pay money to come and learn here. Ghana can become a center of herbal excellence, and people will come here to learn. Ghana can become a science hub,
Okay.
all right? And Ghana can become an alternative energy hub.
I guess that's what Dr. Cedi was saying about just not being creative. We need to look at other ways we can make.
We've stayed in the box for a long time, where we've been producers of cocoa. We've produced all the best gold that this whole world has seen, but never have we added value to any of the, products that we export, our exportable products. So I guess it's right. We should start thinking. All the short-term solutions really are not helping.
They have not been helpful. Thank you. But
There you go.
before we go,
Yes.
a minute about the bank switch. What you've been monitoring, you've been watching and listening the debates so far. Well, what do you think about that?
It's institutionalized bribery by government. that is what we have got now. Now government is soliciting bribes on paper formally from a ministerial sector.
Wow.
That is
That's
all
nice.
that it is.
It's documented at least.
It's very simple. It's very simple. If I tell
Institutional
you,
bribery.
all right, come and give me money and I'll give you a contract.
Contract
It's a
is
bribe.
bribery.
I'm asking you to come and give me a bribe and I'll
Pay
give you
for the
money.
contract you're
Pay
going
for
to
the
offer
contract
me.
you're going to get. The distinction between this and the private sector is if you do it in the private sector, it will be considered as a deposit against future earnings. If you come and give me money and say, hey, I'm going to give you this money, and then as time goes on, you pay me back, all right? Or you give me a contract that will enable me to get my money back. It's perfectly acceptable in the private sector. You cannot do it in the government sector. It is pure, simple, dirty bribery. Simple. There's nothing else to it. What our governments have to be aware of is that not everything in law has to be written. There are certain things which you do as ethical, moral guidelines. You must know that certain things that you are doing just are offensive and should not be done. So the fact that we might not have written in the law that this and this and this and this is specifically not allowed, your moral compass should tell you that what I'm doing is not right. We have a procurement law in this country. That procurement law is very clear. You must follow that procurement law. We have constitutional requirements in the economy. That has to be clearly followed through. There are mechanisms of ensuring that there's fair play in the way we allocate things and contracts in the country. You cannot go and take 0.35% of all the FOB money, all right, free on board candidates coming in, and award that to a group of people at your expediency to make it comfortable for you because you weren't an incurred debt. You cannot do that.
All right. It's been nice having this conversation with Mr. Samuel Kofi-Ampah from Group Indum, who is the head of research, and then Mr. Sidney Kingsley-Hayford, who is a financial analyst. And we've been talking about the Cedi, how it's been faring so far, and what it's likely to be at the end of the year, at the end of July now. My name has been Martha Krensolakwa, and I hope we do not get to 5 cities. Thank you for watching.